invite our parliamentarian who will share with us the meeting protocols, and then she will move into a presentation on some tips that we can consider when we're hosting meetings, parliamentary tips. Distinguished Master Beverly, the virtual space is yours.
Thank you, Madam District Director, fellow leaders. This evening, as is usual during these meetings, if there's a question or a comment, we invite persons to share by raising the hand. Wait to be acknowledged. Once acknowledged, share name, state your area or division, and then share your query or comment. I shall move right into the presentation. Fellow leaders, this evening I hope that these few parliamentary tips for hosting meetings will be beneficial as you chair meetings, not only Toastmasters meetings, but any meetings that you are called upon to chair. The gavel, the symbol of authority. It is struck purposefully, and the presiding officer can indicate one of three ways of calling that meeting to order. Presiding officer may either say, this meeting is now called to order, this meeting will come to order, or this meeting will be in order. Toastmasters, do we understand the implications of any of those three statements and the way that preparedness must be evident? Does the presiding officer know, for example, in knowing that the meeting has been called to order, the number of persons registered with Toastmasters International? Does the presiding officer know the average number of persons who usually attend meetings? Or those persons who will be absent or late on that particular meeting? Or even if all persons within the meeting are financial? These conditions, or these considerations, I should say, will determine if your meeting will start at a scheduled time, meaning that there is a quorum. The quorum being the minimum number of members who must be present at the meeting for business to be validly conducted. So if you're having motions, any decisions that have to be made by the club, then there must be a quorum. That brings us next then to how is our quorum determined. We must be aware that there is no standard number, as this may change from meeting to meeting. So it is definitely not determined by the number of persons registered at TI. Let's play with two scenarios. In the first case, there are 25 persons registered at TI. On a given evening, when the gavel is banged, the attendance is 18. The people we call the regulars, and they're all paid-up members. On that evening, the quorum is 10. Half of 18 equals 9, and 9 plus 1 equals 10, because the quorum is half plus 1. So half of 18 is 9, and 9 plus 1 will give us 10. So once there are 10 persons there, any business can be conducted validly. In the second scenario, the presiding officer is aware, when the meeting is about to begin, that 2 of those 18 regulars will be absent. And there are 3 persons who are going to join soon after the meeting begins. The quorum now becomes 9. So it's 18. We're going to take away the 2 who will be absent. 2 from 18 will give you 16. Half of 16 is 8, and 8 plus 1 will give you the 9 members for that quorum. In the best case scenario, if all 25 persons, we're all persons attend, the quorum will be half of 14 equals 13. There are no halves of people, so 13 plus 1 will give you 14. Once there's a quorum, the business of the club can proceed, and there is an agenda to follow. It's recommended that the business session should last at least, well, no more than 30 minutes, but you're given an extra 10 minutes. So a business session can last about 40 minutes. As I said this, let me state that no meeting should begin late because the president is not there. Any of the executive members, including the VPE, the VPM, VPR, IPP, and the treasurer can sit in the chair. You must bear in mind, though, that whoever is sitting in the chair is not referred to as an acting president. Once you are a member of the executive and sitting in the chair, you're referred to as Mr. or Madam Chair. Sometimes there's a case of where there might be an inexperienced president, or let's say the president is a very inexperienced person. Then an experienced member who is not a part of the executive can be nominated to assume, based on what is happening within the meeting, can assume that role. And then the person is called Mr. or Madam Chairman, because that person is really Chairman pro tem and can be addressed as Mr. or Madam Chair. But once the president arrives, or the next highest ranking officer, then the person, that pro tem chair must give way to the president or the next highest ranking officer that enters the room. You may ask me, suppose there's no quorum, then what do I do? When there's no quorum, there are a number of things we can do. You can end the meeting. I know I said through a motion again, so it means you have to be really versed on motions to be able to move the motion to adjourn. You can recess the meeting in your efforts to obtain a quorum, so the meeting could probably come out differently because there's no quorum, so you then have to find a quorum to call your next meeting. Or there and then, like in a virtual setting, for example, you can go about rounding up members and asking the host you're going to come into the room, or even in a physical setting, how near or far are you from the meeting place, and things like that, when you want to ensure the meeting comes off and there's a quorum. And remember, we were saying that if there's important business to be conducted that needs the majority, that's when the quorum is going to be especially important. For any information on the quorum, you can also always remember, I know that it was using the Robert's Rules of Order, and that can be found on pages 548 to 514. Let me add here, though, that having a meeting with the business session allows us to fulfill Article 1 of this document. I'm not sure how many persons are aware of this document, how many members have it within their clubs. It's also available online, the club constitution for clubs of Toastmasters International. And in this document, on page 2, under Article 1, subheading Purpose, it reads, the purpose of a Toastmasters member club is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every individual member has the opportunity to develop oral communication and leadership skills, fostering greater self-confidence and personal growth. It goes on. To carry out this purpose, this club shall, and there are a number of bullets, but I want to bring your attention to bullet 5. Bullet 5 says, increase its individual members' knowledge of the rules of parliamentary procedure and their skills in conducting meetings and participating in group discussions. Once we become involved in parliamentary procedure and discussions during the business session, this will enable you to move motions at will during discussions. And that brings me to what a motion does. So during meetings, we are discussing things and we are just cross-talking, and No decisions being made. And that is where the motion comes in. So it's a formal proposal made by one of the members that the assembly takes a certain action. That motion can bring new business, or it can make other proposals and go through their steps. And that's where we come to our different kinds of motions. Again, can't be discussed in a session such as this. These are all sessions that will have to be our sessions within themselves. So the various motions that you will come across on a daily within a meeting, your main motion, where it introduces a subject for consideration. Then there's the subsidiary motion that changes or affects a main motion. The privilege motion that concerns special matters not related to pending business, and then there's the incidental motion that questions procedures. So once we become involved in parliamentary procedure, you get an opportunity to do most of these things. For the purpose, not for this purpose, though, within the next few minutes, what I really wish to do, though, is to expose you to the main motion, the format of the main motion. And to do so, I have this scenario, very general scenario that we're going to use to show how you go through the steps of the main motion. So your club, let's say it's a very new club, has elections to fill the 7 required member positions on the executive. And there's a bit discussion, there was just this, again, the back and forth talking, and no decision being made. And this one member who is very vocal decides that, or believes that, before we ask this person to take these roles, they must know in detail what these roles entail. And here is where that person decides we are going to move a motion to have this presentation. So it becomes now formal, it's a part of the club's minutes, and something can be done about it. So to move a motion, there are 6 essential steps. The first 3, the motion is brought to the assembly, and the last 3 is where the motion is considered. So let's look at the first step. A member makes the motion. So there's no business pending, nobody is speaking, and the member stands because the person has obtained the floor from the presiding officer, and the person makes the motion. A person is said to make a motion, but we use the word move. So I move that. Now I would like to move. I move that. Those are the words. The motion begins that way. I move that. So in this case, I move that. This is the pose of the motion. I move that there be a detailed presentation on the roles of the executive. That's step 1. Step 2, another member now seconds the motion. You can do that 3 ways. Second, I second the motion, or the raised hand recognized by the presiding officer. So second, I second the motion, or the raised hand shows that the motion has been seconded. You must bear in mind, the seconder does not have to agree. All the seconder does is give an opportunity for the motion to come before the assembly. So the person doesn't have to agree. You're just giving permission to discuss the motion. We must know also that if no one seconds the motion, the chair must make sure that it was heard and should say, is there a second for the motion? So Beverly moved the motion, Beverly moved the motion, and no one seconded, there was no raised hand, there was no a second, there was no a second the motion. The chair, being observant, recognized nobody second the motion and should say, is there a second to the motion? No response. Since there's no second to the motion is not before this meeting. And then you continue with your normal business that you would do. At step 3, the chair states the question on the motion. All that means is that the chair repeats the motion. So the chair would say, it has been moved and seconded that there be a detailed presentation on the roles of the executive. That's all. And after doing so, it invites the mover of the motion to speak first. The mover can give way to someone else. So let's say that person was doing a lot of the talking during the discussion before moving the motion, but say, let me give somebody else the opportunity to speak. But the first option is given to the mover of the motion to speak on the motion. The mover also speaks last on the motion. So that happens at step 3. The chair states the question on the motion and give permission at number 4 for the speaker, the proposer of the motion, the mover of the motion, to start the debate. The chair must also be cognizant that they are going to be persons for the motion and against the motion. So if there's a case of where everybody is speaking for the motion, then the chair can ask, is there anyone who wants to speak against the motion? So we can get some discussion on that as well. And each person after speaking is recommended that the person say, well, for example, I invite members to vote on the motion, or I invite members not to vote on the motion, or vote against the motion. So the motion has been debated. There's lots of debate on the motion, and the presiding officer puts the question. The last person has the first person, the person who proposed it has given his last speech. So we're now ready at number 5 to put the question or put it to the vote. So what the chair does again is repeat the question, repeat the motion, and say we are now going to vote. And so you can say, are you ready for the question? Repeat it and vote. Votes can be taken by voice, can be taken by hands, or they can be taken by standing, or you can even do the ballot. In these cases, you would normally have usually we have the voice vote. So the presiding officer would say, those in favor of the motion, please say aye. This is the voice vote. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye. And she listens for those, or he listens for those. Those against the motion say nay. That's the voice vote. For the hand vote or the standing vote, those for the motion show a raised hand. And the sergeant arms counts those hands, or those who are standing. Those against show a raised hand. So that's after the questions, that's the voting part. At number 6 now, the chair announces the result. So for the voice vote, you'll normally hear it said, the ayes have it. Motion is carried. We can also say the motion is carried, or the motion is adopted. For the standing vote or the hand vote, because you have counted, the motion is carried or adopted 15 for, 3 against. The motion is denied, rejected, lost, defeated, 15 against, and 3 for. But somewhere in between there, between number 4 and 6, some things can happen. So during the debate at while we were debating at number 4, someone thought, look, this thing is going on too long. Let's vote on it. And a member can say, previous question. Again, that's a motion. And what the previous question does is it stops the debate. Whether the proposer has spoken last or not, it just brings an end to the debate. And the presiding officer must put the question. If with the previous question, you vote on the previous question, which requires a 2/3 majority vote. So once voted on and the two-thirds majority wins, then it stops. However, if they lose, if it is lost, if it's denied, then you will have to carry on with the debate. But the previous question was asked. That previous question, which is a motion, brings an end to the debate. Once it's passed, once it's allowed, once it's adopted, then you vote on the motion. So you vote on the previous question, get with a two-thirds majority, and then vote on the original main motion. Also, at that stage, you can have during the voice vote, for example, you can have someone say division. Again, it's a motion. But what does division mean? It implies that the member is not so sure that the ayes had it. In that person's opinion, the ayes and the nays were probably the same. So what the division does, it calls for a vote, hand vote, or a standing vote. And once that division is called, then the presiding officer, must ensure that there is a standing vote or a counting vote. Fellow Toastmasters, these are the references used, Madam Chair.